Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on well, a truly profound journey, one that delves right into the heart of existence itself. Our guide is Chapter 1 of Oscar Muñoz's remarkable book, Path of Beauty.
A fascinating text.
It really is. And for this deep dive, our mission, really, is to distill the most potent insights from this rich dialogue.
Right.
We want to help you navigate those universal questions that, quietly or loudly besiege us all.
Old big ones.
Exactly. We'll unpack the surprising nature of our anxieties, challenge our conventional beliefs about finding meaning, explore an ancient concept known as dharma, and ultimately uncover something truly transformative about love and, well, your very own being.
Yeah, and this chapter, it's set up as this vibrant conversation. You have two figures. Isla, who voices so many of the raw existential questions and, frankly, frustrations we often feel.
Right, that sense of being lost.
Exactly. And then there's Sura, who offers this much more expansive philosophical lens. It's a dialogue that really cuts right to the core of what it means to be human and, to seek understanding in this complex world.
So Isla kicks things off by expressing this deep sense of unease.
Yeah.
She feels adrift, uncertain about life's meaning, like she says, a river whose flow has dried.
Powerful image.
It is. She's besieged by questions that don't just puzzle her. They actively rob her of confidence. They become painful questions.
And that's a feeling I think many can relate to, that sort of gnawing sense of not knowing where you're going.
Absolutely. But what's immediately fascinating is Sura's response. It completely reframes our understanding of questions themselves.
It really does. Sura suggests questions are, well, neither true nor false.
Okay.
They express both knowledge and ignorance simultaneously.
Both. Knowledge and ignorance.
Yeah. And even more profoundly, they carry implicit matrices of answers.
Implicit matrices of answers. That's a powerful phrase. Can you help us understand what that means in practice? Like, how does a question already hold the seed of its own answer?
Well, think of it like this. A question isn't just an empty space waiting for something to fill it.
Right.
It's more like a dynamic structure. If you ask, say, how can I build a bridge across this river?
Okay.
The question itself already implies engineering principles, physics, even the desire for connection. That matrix is the inherent framework, the possibilities, the directions that the question itself sort of carves out. It shapes the kind of answer that can emerge.
So it's not just admitting ignorance.
No, not at all. It's
Yeah.
actually a pathway to discovery.
So what about those moments then, like Isla describes, when the frustration is just so overwhelming we can't even formulate our questions clearly? What's going on there?
Yeah. Sura explains that the underlying desire, the energy driving that frustration, it isn't contained within our usual form of speech.
And form of speech here means more than just words.
Oh, definitely. It's a deeper concept. It's like the fundamental way reality speaks or expresses itself, how it shapes our perceptions, our experiences. So these unformed questions, they reflect something not merely mental. Sura says it's much more basic, it's present at a cellular level and at a molecular level.
Wow, cellular level.
Yeah, it's like a spontaneous, direct impulse, a fundamental urge from within.
This brings us to, I think, a really remarkable insight. Sura says that while the contents of questions belong to the dual world, human language, true, false, right, wrong.
Right, the world of opposites.
The actual action of questioning itself reveals something else. A creative impulse that is spontaneous and non-dual.
Yes. And that term non-dual is crucial here.
Can you unpack that a bit? Non-dual.
Sure. Non-dual points to a reality beyond our usual perception of everything being separate.
Like me and you. Subject and object.
Exactly. Where the questioner and the questioned aren't ultimately distinct. So the act of questioning, Sura is saying, isn't just a brain exercise. It actually originates from the very play of creation and dissolution of forms that we call the universe.
The universe itself is questioning.
In a sense, yes. It's adopting the language of life. And questions, viewed this way, can extend our perception. I mean, think of science looking deeper into the microscopic, or they can extend our conceptual objects, like developing ethics. Sura says it's through this deeper speech, expressed in different languages, that the world appears is sustained and dissolves when speech dissipates.
And our anxiety.
Yeah.
Our desire. Ayla asks if these are also forms of this fundamental speech.
And Sura confirms they are. They arise, they disappear spontaneously.
Oh.
They're forms of the speech, of the will of life, and then your mind elaborates them into specific thoughts and feelings.
So even our deepest anxieties aren't just like personal issues.
Sura suggests they're expressions of something much deeper, a vital primal impulse moving through us.
Okay, moving on slightly. Isla shares this profound disillusionment. She talks about the splendid buildings we call knowledge, meaning science.
Yes.
She searched for nectar, for lasting joy there, but found nothing.
Right, a sense of emptiness.
Yeah. She feels science reduces humanity to an infinitesimal cosmic accident. It leaves us orphaned of the divine. And she uses this really stark image, selling the bliss of a simple yearning for beauty and joy in exchange for 30 pieces of technology.
Wow. That's a powerful critique, isn't it? Connecting technology's rise with a kind of loss of soul.
Definitely. And it raises that important question. What can we realistically expect from science?
And Sura's response here is incredibly direct. Just straight up. You cannot demand from science a knowledge contrary to its procedures. Don't reproach the pine for not producing roses. Science does what it does. It understands the material world. Don't ask it for existential meaning it's not designed to provide.
Okay.
Sura emphasizes that you, the listener, do not need the approval of any science nor any religion to understand existence, to be what you already are.
What you already are.
Yes. In fact, Sura states quite boldly, you are already light.
You are already light. That's quite a statement. What does Sura mean by that for someone listening who feels like Isla, lost and burdened by that persistent question about life's meaning?
Well, I think Sura is gently trying to shift the focus, guiding Isla and us away from looking for something out there.
Okay.
That big question about meaning. Sura proposes it isn't necessarily a quest for an answer, like solving a puzzle.
Then what is it?
It expresses the desire to die to a lighter side, life like the one you lead. A life may be consumed by absurdity and blindness.
So it's a yearning for a different way of being, not just finding the right words.
Exactly. A fundamental shift, not just acquiring new intellectual beliefs.
But Isla pushes back. She voices that very human need. We cannot live like the animal nor like the child. The human being needs a life with meaning, needs purposes, intentions, and goals.
Yeah, she's saying, look, we need structure, a framework. We can't just operate on instinct.
Makes sense. But Sura challenges this directly.
Right. Sura suggests Isla is still trying to limit life to a single meaning, to a correct mental answer.
Back to the mental answers.
Yeah. Sura says, the weight of your old belief in science still weighs upon you, and reminds us, an infinite universe has infinite purposes. Life itself. Life is a purpose. It is meaning.
Like the flower.
Exactly. A pure intention that it blooms because it blooms. Every single action, Sura says, is a unique expression of essence.
And Isla is missing something.
Sura observes she misses the old images of the gods, of God, that connection to something beyond the purely rational.
And this leads us naturally to Isla's view on religion itself. She acknowledges they maybe fulfilled their function when we were children as a species.
Right, a sort of developmental stage.
Today, she sees them as a hindrance.
Yeah.
They've become political and economic actions of identity, lost touch with the living God, leading to bloody wars and psychological domination. A pretty damning view.
It is. But Sura offers this really crucial distinction here. Listen to this. Religions, great or small, are expressions of the dharma of an epoch. Nevertheless, the human soul expresses a perennial dharma.
Okay. Dharma of an epoch versus perennial dharma. That sounds important.
Very. It introduces this profound concept, suggesting that while specific religious forms might change or decay or become problematic,
Right.
there's a deeper, timeless spiritual truth, a perennial dharma.
Okay, let's really unpack this word, dharma. Isla admits she's heard it a lot, but the meaning feels slippery.
Yeah, it's common.
She points out the different uses: Buddhism, Hinduism, Buddha's law, elements of existence, cosmic order, ethics. Is it how we act? Is it linked to karma? What is it for us now?
That's a great question because, many ancient words like this, they get covered by the dust of centuries. Their meaning is so tied to the forms of life that a particular society develops.
And in our time, late technological materialism, Sura calls it.
Right. In that context, dharma might feel distant, maybe even irrelevant. But Sura argues its relevance is just as strong today.
So what is it simply?
Sura states it very simply. My life, your life, is the unfolding of a dharma, the course taken by things as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so it's personal, the unique path or unfolding of my life. But how does that connect to something huge like cosmic order? which Isla also mentioned?
Good question. So if we look at the bigger picture, the word dharma shows up in the Rig Veda as a name for a deva, a deity.
Huh?
But even before that, they used the term arta, R-T-A.
Right, what's
Arta refers to the cosmic order. Think of it as the inherent universal rhythm or law that governs everything. The stars moving, the seasons changing, the cycles of nature.
okay, the underlying pattern.
Exactly. And Sura suggests Dharma is the macrocosmic projection of Raita onto the microcosm of human order on this splendid earth.
Whoa.
Oh.
Okay, macrocosmic projection of Raita onto the microcosm. That's dense. Can you help us visualize that a bit more simply?
Let's try. Imagine Raita as this grand, overarching symphony of the universe, the perfect inherent order.
Right.
Dharma, then, is how that universal symphony expresses itself, how its principles play out in the unique individual notes of your life. It's how the cosmic order gets reflected and manifested in your personal actions, your way of being, even your natural tendencies. It's not just a human thing, Sura notes. It was observed even in pre-city hunter-gatherer groups.
It's fundamental.
Very. Dharma, in our own experience, expresses the deepest mode of being of things. It sets up your psyche's relationship with your inner world, the microcosm, and the outer world, the macrocosm. It expresses your response, your form of your awakening in being.
Sura then brings up the Bhagavad Gita, singing of Dharma in the midst of battle. That sounds like a really crucial, maybe challenging distinction. How does Dharma work when life gets messy, not just in peaceful meditation?
Yeah, that's a critical point. Sura really highlights the huge difference between meditating alone versus walking through everyday human conflicts.
Right. Easy on the cushion, maybe harder out there.
Exactly. How difficult is it, Sura asks, to be equitable, generous, honest, and sincere when the life of those we love seems to depend on an action that would force us to abandon Dharma to benefit them?
Oof. That's a real dilemma.
It is, and it raises this incredibly important question for you, listening. How do you live your deepest principles when you're surrounded by ignorance and violence, apathy and malevolence, without letting your heart shrink?
That's tough.
It's about embodying your truth right in the face of life's biggest challenges. And Sura also offers a critique here of the, let's say, traditional yogi, the one who might call the world an illusion,
Right.
but views their own inner struggles as intensely real. Sura suggests that this kind of detachment, while it might seem spiritual, can be no less imaginary, no less egoic than our everyday chasing of wealth or power. It's just another form of clinging, perhaps.
Interesting. This leads into a fascinating idea about two awakenings. What are these awakenings, and why does Sura say we need both?
Okay, so Sura posits that the human soul has two awakenings. First, there's awakening in life.
Okay.
This is what we often call immanence. It's awakening to the sacredness, the reality of this present moment, this physical existence.
Right here, right now.
Exactly. The other awakening is outside of life, or transcendence.
Beyond the physical.
Yes. Awakening to a spiritual reality beyond the immediate, the tangible, something boundless.
And the problem is?
Well, Sura argues the yogi often does not awaken in life, maybe rejecting it as illusion.
Okay.
And the ordinary person often does not awaken outside of life, remaining suspicious of anything beyond what they can touch and see.
So we're often stuck in one or the other.
Pretty much. Sura states that only by awakening to both expressions of reality can we undo the duality of dream waking, samsara and nirvana.
And samsara nirvana, that's the cycle of suffering versus liberation, right?
Correct. It's about integrating them, like in the broader myth of Shiva, who embodies both destruction and creation, transcendence and immanence.
Sura even shares a personal experience here, mentioning seeing white herons.
Yes, a beautiful passage.
And describing how something in them colored samsara with the hues of nirvana, only to then cover my nirvana with the veils of samsara. That's such a poetic way to describe the interplay. What was the final takeaway from that personal journey?
The takeaway was about distilling the drops of my own dharma, my nectar, my ambrosia.
Finding your own unique essence.
Exactly. And realizing it exists in a place Sura calls a tavern of light, where there are no longer two worlds or two awakenings. It's about realizing the sacred isn't separate from the everyday. The transcendent is found within the immanent.
Isla then asks, well, isn't there just one dharma for all humans? You know, like a universal moral code or path?
A common question.
And Sura's answer is pretty profound. Dharma is not only human.
Not just us.
No. It is the infinite reflections of Oita, each one expressing something unique.
Infinite reflections.
Yeah. Sura urges Isla, and by extension you, the listener, to awaken to your own dharma, whatever it may be, and follow that impulse without hindering it with narratives of duality.
Don't get caught in the shoulds and shouldn'ts imposed from outside.
Seems like it. Suri even says there's more benefit in following its own dharma than in following the elevated dharma of any other. Even someone seemingly more enlightened.
Wow. That's a radical idea of individual dharma. But, okay, here's a question. If there's a single ultimate reality, a unique being, wouldn't that imply a single universal code of action for everyone? How can reality be both one and plural?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? Unity and plurality.
And Sura emphasizes, the unity of reality is simultaneously plurality.
Okay. Oh.
To understand this, Sura clarifies, the one is not a number. It's not like the number 1 standing next to 2 and 3.
Right.
It's the condition of possibility of number and form.
A condition of possibility.
Imagine a blank canvas. It's one in its pure potentiality, right?
Yeah.
But it's the very condition that allows for countless unique paintings, infinite forms and colors to appear on it. The one is that underlying ground from which all unique expressions, all the different dharmas arise.
Okay, I think I get that. The canvas allows the unique paintings.
Exactly. So when Sura says, follow your own dharma, they immediately clarify, in what you call your own dharma, there is nothing personal. Your soul is transpersonal.
Transpersonal, meaning beyond my little ego, my personality, connecting to something universal.
Precisely. So your unique path, your specific way of being, is paradoxically not just yours. It's a unique expression, a facet of the universal whole, connected to the fabric of everything.
Okay, wow. So as we near the end of this chapter, Isla shares that her dharma speaks to her of love.
Mm-hmm.
She recalls those famous words of Hanuman to Rama. When I do not know who I am, I worship you. When I know who I am you.
Beautiful. The path of devotion and the path of knowledge merging.
Yeah. She feels this truth really deeply, but then admits the struggle. Forgetfulness too often returns me to this daily struggle.
And isn't that just so relatable? Knowing a truth, feeling it, but struggling to live it consistently day to day.
Completely. And Sura's response is, well, it's radically simple. It challenges almost everything we think about spiritual practice.
What does Sura say?
Cease trying, simply love without any purpose.
Cease trying.
Yeah. When you love, Sura says, there are no two. Adoration, like Hanuman's worship, and unification, Hanuman realizing I am you, are complementary. They need each other. And Sura points out, interestingly, that separation and absence give form to unification and presence. How could you unite with what you love if you weren't, at some level, separated?
That's a fascinating point. The separation creates the space for union.
Exactly. But that cease trying, that's huge. In a world that constantly tells us to strive, achieve, do more.
Right.
If trying is the problem, should one then, I don't know, practice the remembrance of being? Or is even that still too much doing?
And this is maybe the most challenging, but also the most liberating insight in the whole chapter.
Okay.
Sura's final advice is crystal clear. No action, mechanical or non-mechanical, can give you what you already have, what you are, being itself.
Nothing you do can give you what you are.
Correct. Any practice, any technique aimed at arriving where you already are, Sura says it can only confuse you and take you away from there.
Like searching for your glasses when they're already on your head.
Exactly like that. The very act of searching implies they're lost, which is the opposite of the truth. It reinforces the sense of lack. Sura concludes this section saying, existence is encounter and forgetfulness. Each living encounter is unique, and one thanks to forgetfulness.
Wow. Encounter and forgetfulness, both are part of it. What an extraordinary journey through this first chapter of Path of Beauty.
It really is.
We've gone from those raw anxieties about existence to discovering this deeper creative impulse behind our questions, from seeing the limits of conventional knowledge to exploring this expansive individualized idea of Dharma, and finally landing on this radical simplicity of simply loving without purpose and the paradox of, well, trying to find what you already are.
Yeah, this deep dive, it really reveals that the search for meaning might not be about finding some external answer, or about endless spiritual striving.
It seems not.
Instead, maybe it's just about recognizing what you already are, that the meaning of life isn't some finite sequence of words you find or a destination you reach through practice, but maybe it's the spontaneous, non-dual unfolding of your own unique transpersonal dharma. It's more about letting go than grasping.
So thinking about this, what does this all mean for you, listening? Perhaps the most profound thought to carry forward from this deep dive isn't, what is the meaning of life?
Maybe not.
But rather, what if I simply loved without any purpose? What if I let go of the trying and just fully embraced both the vivid encounters and the inherent forgetfulness that seemed to be part of my own being?
Something to sit with.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.